Well, as things continue to fall apart here for the Democrat Party, as they are showing the American people who they really are, is now they are openly running a blatant communist for New York City to be the new mayor in the city that terrorists knocked over the two trade centers. Now, all of a sudden, they're deciding that they're going to put this person in charge of the largest city in the United States. I mean, in what world does this make sense? Yet this is the Democrats continuing to be on the wrong side of every single issue. It doesn't seem to matter what issue it is. Right? What is one issue that the Democrats can point to where they're on the same side as the majority of Americans? Well, I can't even think of a single one. Yet that is the Democrats have chosen that they are going to double down on this. And now that they have this open, blatant communist in Zohran Mamdani, as he's going to be openly blatant, as he calls himself a socialistic Democrat. But however they want to reword any of their isms, whether it be socialism or progressivism or liberalism, all the isms, they all work out to be the exact same thing. They all lead down the exact same path over to being communism. It's taking away your rights and your freedoms to rule over you. See, that's the way the liberal elites think. Right? They think that they're better than you, and they think that they're smarter than you. They have Ivy League degrees, and so in their mind, right, it's their job to tell you how to think and what to believe. This has been true for a majority of my life, but what's different now is now that we can actually expose the Democrats for who they really are. Well, welcome back, folks. It's good to be with you again here on this Thursday. I'm your host, CASHLOREN, shining a bright red light on the lies and the hoaxes of the Democrat Party and their friends over at the fake news networks. Be CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Political Access. Every single one of them are in the bag for the DNC. Now they're trying to push this hoax with Zohran, and they're trying to make it look like he is popular with all of you. And they try to do this through selling and giving you free stuff in exchange for voting away your freedom. And the first part we're going to hear was Jen Psaki, who was the former press secretary before she got out of the Biden administration. Now she's over lying for the Democrats over at MSNBC. And she is just gushing over Zohran as he went on her show and bragging about how, could this be possible? Could the Democrats really run socialism and communism really on the main stage? I mean, listen how she words this statement.
Issues that are very relevant to people in New York City, the cost of housing, free busing. Some have projected, that this is the type of platform that would work in other parts of the country. I mean, you're a proud Democratic socialist. Do you think that is a platform that would work for other candidates running in other parts of the country?
You see how they're just so excited. Oh, do you think we could really, do you think Americans would really go for us taking away all their rights? I mean, do you think this is something that the rest of the American voters, do you think they'd really let us tax us into poverty and starvation? They're blinded by, and the only thing the Democrats care about, okay, never forget anything else about this. The one and only thing that the Democrats care about is power. That is it, because they are blatant communists, every single one of them. And they try to lie like the communists, the socialists, progressives, whatever they want to call themselves this day. They always try to pretend that they're for the worker. Right? It's this very old, ancient Marxism ideology in them, where they're up here, they're smarter and better than you, and then you're down here and you should give up your rights and your freedoms. But over and over and over again, it shows, see, this is why no one runs to socialism, but everybody runs away from socialism, because it doesn't work anywhere that they've tried it. Everywhere that they go, people die. People starve to death in the tunes of hundreds of millions of people. These socialists, these progressives, these communists, they have killed more people than all the world wars combined. This is something we're not allowed to talk about, apparently, but they love power. Right? They want the bigger government. This is part of what I call the three-headed beast from the DC abyss. See, one of the heads is the deep state, and these are all these unelected bureaucrats that think that they get to rule over from you. Now, you've never heard of these people. You don't know their names. They're directors of this or secretaries of that, but whatever three-letter alphabet agency that they work for for the federal government, they think that they get to write the rules and regulations that you have to live by. And then the other head of the beast is the Democrats and their friends in the Rhino Uniparty, who are really what we call Republicans or rhinos, Republicans in names only, but they're no different than the Democrats. In fact, they are Democrats, hence the Rhino in name only. Whether you want to call them shiny shoe Republicans or fancy suits or any other case, they think exactly like the Democrats do. And these rhinos, they want to play second fiddle. Right? They don't want to win. They don't want a Donald Trump in the White House fighting for you, the American people. They want to go into, they want to talk tough on the line, and they want to go on CNN and MSNBC and say all those stage points. But at the end of the day, when it comes, what do? They always just cave and give the Democrats what they want over and over again. I mean, perfect examples like Mike Johnson, where we won back the House, but what did he do? He talked tough, and then the Democrats would slam and say, no, they're not going to pass that. And then he go, well, I'm sorry. I tried. We tried really hard, but we can't shut down the government. That'd be so bad. So instead of doing that, since we tried, we're just going to give the Democrats everything they want. And then, we'll try again next time. And hopefully that works out better for us. Well, on the Senate side, when the Democrats, they all vote down, whether they have 49 or 51 or 53, however many Democrat senators they have, they don't have the same problems that we do. They always go and they always vote down party line. And then Mitch McConnell, it seems to be exactly the same number of senators that he needs to go and give Democrats everything they want, and they sign their bills. And this happens over and over and over and over again. The neocons who have controlled the Republican Party for the last 30 years are finally dying off. And so this giant beast, this three-headed monster that's been in Washington, D.C., for as long as I've been alive, and probably longer than you want to believe or imagine. It is just a single uniparty. I mean, the Republicans pretend to be Republicans, but they're not Republicans at all until Trump came back, and now is exposing it all. But the Democrats, see, their biggest strength is that they can all go down the party line just like we talked about. But it's also their biggest weakness because they don't realize how out of touch they are. I mean, they think people like Zohran and people like Jasmine Crockett and AOC, these insane woke liberals, are the future, not only the Democrat Party, but the future of America. That they have brought in enough of the third world now that people are going to vote for losing their lights and their freedoms. So this is what Jen Psaki is so excited about. This is finally going to happen. Then watch how Zohran responds to this question.
Absolutely. I think ultimately this is a campaign about inequality. And you don't have to live in the most expensive city in the country to have experienced that inequality because it's a national issue. And what Americans coast to coast are looking for are people who will fight for them, not just believe in the things that resonate with their lives, but actually fight and deliver on those very things. And part of how we got to this point was through the endorsements of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders, who've been leading this fight against oligarchy across the country. And I think that in focusing on working people and their struggles, we also return back to what makes so many of us proud to be Democrats in the first place.
Right. To translate what he's trying to say there, when he's saying for the working people, what he's really trying to say is this Marxist ideology. It was really ironic about the Democrat class and their party is they are the party of the liberal elites. I mean, they are the party of the billionaires, the rich and the wealthy. And everything they do is a lie. And this is why they continue to collapse in their own party and why they're so unpopular, why they're on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue. Hey, this is the reason why. But they only talk to each other. They're in their little bubbles. They go and they say, I hate Trump and I hate Trump and, socialism's good and progressive is good. And because they only talk to each other, they only kick out anyone that doesn't agree with them. They don't realize that there's this tiny little segment over here, but the entire country doesn't agree with them. And even after the slacking that they took in 2024, they still learn no lessons. They still go right back to all the same things that they always used to do. Right, go in front of cameras and lie, run to MSNBC, run to CNN, and lie through there. And now you have the more and more radicals rising up to the Democrat Party as the Democrat Party shrinks. And then you have people like Bernie Sanders who thinks that the Democrat Party isn't crazy enough.
It is, I don't think people can argue with us. It is funded by very wealthy people. It is run by inside the Beltway consultants who really have very little clue about what's going on in the real world. And that is why I think, sadly, Kamala Harris lost an election.
No lessons were learned. Right? He admits in the first hand, well, yeah, the problem with the Democrat Party is we're out of touch. Why? Because we are the rich, we are the elite. They are the billionaires. They keep lying about everything that their party stands for. And then on the other side, he tries to say, well, the reason why Kamala Harris lost essentially is because we didn't lie enough. Right? We should have lied more. We should have gone more crazy than we did. We should have offered, why not free houses to everybody? Or why not, nobody has to work. You get a check, you get a check, you get a check. I mean, where's the end to the free stuff? But at least most of America at least understands that this is the frozen fruit. Because the reality is the reason why they have to offer all this free stuff is because if you knew the cost, you would never pay it. Because the cost of the Democrats' isms, their socialism, their progressivism, but really communism, the cost is poverty, slavery, and death every single time. That's why the Democrats have to lie, and it's so important for us to tell the truth. But he learns no lessons, as he says, we need to double down on lying to the American people, and we need to go more communist.
One, it is a party which is not going to take on powerful special interests because of fundraising fears, and it certainly has turned its back on working people. And Zohran did all of that. He changed all of that about. And the question is, will the Democratic leadership learn from his campaign? I doubt it. I think they would rather go down with the Titanic than give up the fact that they are captains of the boat. But it doesn't really matter what they think. What Zohran's campaign showed is that people are prepared to stand up and fight for change. We're seeing that in the fighting oligarchy talk. We saw it last week. Millions of people came out to the No King rally. People understand that our political and economic system is broken.
Please keep learning no lessons. Please keep pretending like Joe Biden and the Democrats weren't in power for the last 4 years. And the reason that Donald Trump came back and won was because the American people were sick of the Democrats' policies. They're tired of more and more government in their face. They want less taxes, secure borders, deportations. I mean, these are all the things that the American people want, and these are all the things that the Democrats are against. I mean, name one issue that they're on the right side of. And to help illustrate this point, here is Zohran Mamdani explaining his position on one of the most unpopular positions possible, yet he thinks this is a great idea.
We've said beyond saying that we're going to make this a sanctuary city for LGBTQIA plus workers, beyond saying that we're going to establish an office of LGBTQIA plus affairs, is also that we're going to provide $65 million of funding for gender-affirming care, the same amount of funding that the federal government threatened to pull out from local providers for that kind of work.
Yeah, they're going to double down on what's made the Democrats incredibly unpopular. They're going to put millions of dollars, just like Kathy Hochul is trying to do now with lawyers for illegal immigrants. Now he's bragging about spending millions of dollars to mutilate children. They cut off perfectly healthy body parts. This is not popular with the American people. And he goes through his entire program. If you want to see how bad this is, so here is one of his tweets that he had to pull down, because once you see who he really is, see, this is the issue with the Democrats. They have to lie, but once you see the truth, they're incredibly unpopular, so they know it, so they lie. Well, this is the one that he tried to hide now, but the internet is forever. We don't need an investigation into know that the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to the public safety. What we need to do is defund the New York Police Department. But your deal with the New York City mayor uses budget tricks to keep as many cops as possible on the beat. And learn no lessons, right? Because as he also does his platform, now he's trying to switch away from pretending that he's not against police. Then on the other side, what he wants to do is he wants to remove as many criminals from prison as possible. And then he wants to create safe spaces for people to shoot up hardcore narcotics. If this guy gets elected, our largest city in the United States will fall. And I don't know if there's any possible way for them to get back up. And the reality is a Republican is not going to win in New York. And the one chance that we have is that hopefully that we can get a Republican to drop out. So this is now on our side, is they're trying to get Republican New York City candidate Curtis Swilla to drop out the race by getting him a job in the Trump's administration. So they can have Zohran go up directly against Mayor Adams. And I can't believe that on our side, we're actually defending Mayor Adams. But he is not near as crazy as Zohran is. And he was actually against illegal immigration and letting ICE go into the prisons and deport these people. And it was the Democrats who went after him. This is hopefully the one shot we got. And hopefully he listens and he drops out. And then we can stop this guy from getting elected. Everywhere that, whether they want to call it socialism, or whether they want to try progressivism, or what it really is communism, everywhere it goes, people suffer. The United States is the greatest country this world has ever known. There is an abundance of opportunity here. The freedom is hard. See, but being enslaved, being in chains, that's the wide open path. That's what makes what I call like the blessing, the fruit, the poison fruit, so tempting of socialism is they offer you all these free stuff, right? You have free buses, and we'll control rent prices, and we will, have government-owned grocery stores to make sure these prices stay down. So the same people that cause all these problems are promising to pretend to fix them. And what's the cost? You have to give up your rights to them in exchange for poverty, slavery, and death. That is always the results of communism every single time. You want to see what the Biden, his administration did? What people like Zohran would do with 10 times worse. With that, we're up against a break. We'll be right back. We have a lot more to cover on this and a whole lot more. This is the CASHLOREN Show. We'll be right back after this greedy profit break. This is not enough. As I was saying before in the earlier part of the segment, that how crazy these communists are. And we talked about some of the economy. We talked about some of the law enforcement. But the other part that they're trying to use is some of this hate speech stuff. And what's interesting is what happens in Europe often comes here later, through New York, through California, and then up through the rest of the country. There's the crap that they're trying to pull. Is we have what they're doing in hate speech, essentially is just made up crimes to target people they don't like, they don't agree with the government. And this is happening in Britain right now. As we have two men, they got jailed for doing an atrocious act towards a 14-year-old girl. These two men, they only had 30 months. For that is so bad that I don't want to say it on a PG show. I don't even cuss. This one here, but the mother, this is how insane this woke stuff is. The mother posted an offensive social media post, quickly deleting it, and then she got 31 months. And so she offended the people who did that to her daughter. And she's getting more time in prison than the people who committed the actual crime. This is the woke madness. I mean, when I was younger, like all of you, right, you go to school and you need to read 1984. And when I was young and I read 1984, I just thought this is, so far out there. This could never happen. I mean, how would that even work? How would the government get inside your TV and watch you? How would they listen to all your radios? It just didn't really compute. Now, when I went back and I read 1984 recently, I thought this doesn't go far enough. What we're seeing right now is way crazier than when Orwell talked about in his great book. That is absolutely insane. That is what's coming to the United States. They're already trying to do it here. We saw with the really big cases, like what's happening with Donald Trump, when he had the audacity to go up against the deep state and try to become president. And they tried to throw him in prison for that. The insane convictions of the felonies that will be overturned. And then the Gene Carroll that's, of course, going to go away. And then they went after all his businesses, like in New York, to try to bankrupt him. They're not really scared of Donald Trump. What they're scared to death of is they're scared to death of billionaire populists actually doing what the American people want. instead of the deep state deciding every single bit of your life. That's what they're really up against. And this is very important to them, okay? If nothing else, understand that it's the same reason they went after Elon Musk as they go after Donald Trump, is if they go after anybody else that tries to go up against them. Is don't you even try it. Don't you dare. Because if you do, we will ruin your businesses, we will destroy your family, and we will put you in prison for the rest of your life. So don't even try it. Like Schumer warned Trump all those years ago. You know, the intelligence agencies, they got 6 ways of Sunday from getting you. And if you dare to go up against the deep state, well, for such a smart businessman, that's really dumb. But Trump did. Trump fought and Trump won. And he proved what many of us already knew, but it wasn't able to get out to the masses, that there are millions of you that think the way that you do, that are independent thinkers like you, that love our country, that believe in American exceptionalism, that want opportunity, that want the right to pursue happiness. They don't want it stolen by the lies of socialism and communism, such as equity, which is not equality. It's the ending, not the beginning. Who don't want the government taking all their money and then redistributing it from those that work to those that don't. Who don't want our country invaded by this illegal invasion of our country, and don't want our tax dollars going to all these illegal immigrants. Well, they had to try to hide that from you, so they went after Donald Trump and they failed. They went after Elon Musk, but really they're going after you. And there's many, many other cases that are not near as famous, but this is their goal, is to try to turn this two-tier justice system that we often hear about, where they essentially take rules and laws and they selectively enforce them. And how often do you see for these AGs or these prosecutors or these judges that are really just activists, right? And they release criminals over and over and over again. But then if the wrong person checks the wrong box on a piece of paper, all of a sudden they want to try to put that up to a felony and put them in prison for the rest of their lives. But if you're on the right side of the government, right, if you're on the Democrat side, then, you know, they just look the other way. Or we'll open an investigation that never ever goes anywhere. If you're like a Jasmine Crockett who assaults a reporter, you know, nothing ever happens. Their referral and investigation, and then we never hear another word. But imagine like if Alex Jones had done that, right? And they tried to ruin his entire life for virtually the exact same thing. See, the wrong side of the political versus the right side of the political. This isn't American at all. This is not what our founders believed in when they said equal justice protected under the law. That our justice is supposed to be blind. We are very fortunate that Donald Trump won in 2016, and because he was able to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. And we have a mostly a miss with Amy Coney Barrett, but sometimes she wins. And in this case, she did as well. Have you seen this one? This is huge. I can't say how big of a deal this Supreme Court victory is for the United States. And this is against Planned Parenthood. And what this ruling did is this was a 6-3 ruling for SCOTUS. So the 6, our side, the 6 conservatives voted yes. And of course, the same 3 liberal justices, Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kavanaugh, all dissented. Now imagine if Hillary Clinton had won in 2016. Then this 6-3 would be the other way. And this is in South Carolina. This is banning the Planned Parenthood tax dollars being used to fund the ending of babies' lives. Abortion is the one thing that the Democrats thought they could run on and win over and over again, was that the woman's right to choose. Is they're trying to reduce woman to, I think, is the most satanic thing that you can do in this world, is ending the life of a poor, innocent child. But the Democrats, they are drunk on the blood of the innocent, and they don't care if these biological males go and invade women's locker rooms or spaces. They don't actually believe in women's rights. They won in 2022 in a large part of the woman's right to choose, but ultimately abortion. This is right after Roe versus Wade got turned, that never should have been on the books in the first place. And our tax dollars should not be funding the ending of innocent children's life. Now, on part of this is only in South Carolina. But the thing is now, this precedent has been set. So every single Republican state, in every state that we can, we should sue and we should end Planned Parenthood forever. This, I want to point out part of this too. So this part of this here is centered around whether the right to sue over the exclusion. So essentially, South Carolina can't be sued. They're just not going to give the Medicaid money to Planned Parenthood. And at least 3 centers are going to be shut down. Good. Every human life that we can save is a good thing. The Democrats and their friends, the Planned Parenthood, it's ironic people like Elizabeth Warren who will sit behind a podium that says Planned Parenthood and then talk about human rights. Like they're so elite, they don't look at every single successful abortion ends an innocent child's life. And everybody that is alive today because they weren't aborted when they had no say. Now we have people like Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, and she is just, I don't know, is probably the craziest person, liberal women, man. The words. She goes, Supreme Court paved the way to defund Planned Parenthood. Yes. I think what most Americans want. Now, the country overall has changed a lot, unfortunately. Most of the country is, at some level, okay with abortion. And whether it be at 16 weeks or 15 weeks, seem to be the two normal, but at some level, abortion. A vast majority of the country is not what the Democrats want, which is unlimited abortion, even post-birth. And of course, the Democrats do what they always do when this comes up, is they try to lie about it, but this is 100% what they are for. It is a satanic death code. And she goes, at the same time, Republicans are pushing a bill that would go even further, closing 1 in 3 locations of Planned Parenthood. And I say that's not far enough. Let's close 3 out of 3. Every single one, shut it down. And not only are they ending innocent life, but they're also helping like schools and libraries and other places push this radical woke ideology on the young minds of children that most parents are vastly against, which leads into a whole different world of school choice. But that's an episode for another time. Every life is precious. Every single one of you are unique. There is not another one of you out there, not now, not in the entirety of the history of the human race, and nor will there ever be in the future. You are an individual soul under our Lord Savior Jesus Christ. And every single life that they're able to end ends one of those souls. This also goes against the nuclear family, who we talked about before, is that this children's life is a way to do the most satanic thing that I could think possible in this life. But also it goes against everything that motherhood is supposed to be. I mean, you're supposed to be there to protect your children. You're supposed to be the nurturer and the guardian. And then the father being the head of the household. So you have the mother and the father raising children. Those children then go to school, get jobs, get married, have their own children, raise those children, and it continues on. That is the nuclear family. That is what's helped build the greatest country this world has ever known. And the Democrats want to end that, and the Democrats want to take that away. And they want to replace God. They want to replace the nuclear family with as much government as they possibly can to make you more and more dependent on their new God, government. This is what we have to fight. And this is the battles that we have to win. It is the only way to save our country. Bring us back to Jesus Christ, defund this federal government, reduce taxes as much as possible, secure our border, deport illegal immigrants, and then have as much rights go as close as we can to the home. Right? The less laws the federal government has, the better. And then each state should be vastly different. And you should be able to vote with your feet, not just vote at the ballot box. If you don't agree with your state in the way they run it, then you have the chance to lead to a state that you agree with. And then inside that state, if you have a county that you don't agree with, you can move to a county that fits your values. This is also why we need school choice, to bring that as close to the parent as possible. So if you want to send your kids to these woke BLM Marxist activist teachers, then I guess by all means. But if you don't want to, then you can vote by sending your kid to a school that agrees with your values. This is the battle of our generation. This is ultimately what Donald Trump has to win. Is defunding this federal government and getting away as much of these regulations as he possibly can. The more we do that, the more we expose the fraud, the abuse, and the waste, as they'll go in and they'll spend $5 trillion and then $7 trillion go out the door, and no one's allowed to ask where all this money goes. That I'm up against another break, so we'll be back here in a few more minutes, including we have Donald Trump, who has in a huge battle with fake news again, as they lied about what happened in Iran nuclear facilities over this weekend. They knew they lied. They tried to lie anyways. We'll talk about how the deep state works with their partners in the fake news networks when we come back, and then what Donald Trump plans to do about it. You're not going to miss any of that. This greedy profit break. This is the CASHLOREN Show. The entire United States is fighting against the Democrats and their socialist communists that they're trying to push this country into this giant, what I call the three-headed beast from the DC abyss. As this being the three different heads, as being one, the deep state, the permanent unelected bureaucrats that run Washington, D.C. And then you have the second head, these politicians, the Democrats in the Rhino Uniparty, and then the third head being the fake news networks of corporate media, whether it be MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, other Times, Washington Post, Political Axios. All of them are Team DNC. They're all in the bag for the Democrats. But as we go through and as we fight back and we expose them like we've never been able to do before, we are now showing them for who they really are. See, for an entire generation, there was not really another way to get information out. I mean, you got off work, you went home, and there was either turn on the media and you can listen to CNN, or you can listen to MSNBC, or you grab your paper, the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, all the others. Yet the thing was, there was nothing different about any of them. They were all ran by Democrats pushing the exact same talking points. So most of you would never know that the vast majority of the country actually agreed with you, as this was the mirage. But now as we're starting to show and we're starting to expose even more, it was much, much deeper and worse than that. Because they weren't just picking and choosing stories. They were using the deep state, these unelected bureaucrats, to intentionally and blatantly lie to you. And the main way they lie is they put a truth and they put it together with a lie. And most of the time, the lie is they don't give you all the information. And so they'll tell you a truth that is a partial truth, but then they won't tell you the rest, because if you knew the rest, then you would never come to the conclusions that they want you to come to. That was the vast majority of the way they lied. And it wasn't until very recently, really, when Elon Musk, when he purchased X, and then all of a sudden we could start to expose the deep state for who they are and their fake news networks as they lied to them with them. Because what will happen is the deep state, they would not like somebody, or they would want information out there. And so they leak it to the press, and the press would run with this, and the press are fully aware of what's happening. Okay, they're not some innocent bystander in all of this. They are complicit. So they take the report and they tell you the pieces that they want to know using experts say or sources inside the administration. And then that would go back to the Democrats. The Democrats would grab from whatever fake news was reporting this, and then all the other fake news would run with the exact same story from the exact same person. So they would say, well, it must be true because New York Times is running it and MSNBC is running it and CNN. So if all these people, all these credible journalists are running the same story, then it must be true. Right? It must be fact. So then it goes all the way back down to the deep state, and then the deep state would open up an investigation into the story that they made up and leaked to the Democrats in the first place. This happened again over the weekend with Iran when Donald Trump obliterated their nuclear program as he promised. But the Democrats and the people that are still in the deep state, and there are many of them, do not doubt that for a second, that absolutely hate Donald Trump. And this isn't just the deep state, and this isn't just the Democrats. There are plenty of rhinos too. because these rhinos, they don't want DC to change. They want to play second fiddle. They don't want these problems. They don't want to fight. They don't want to be called names. They just want to go there and wear their fancy suits and shake hands and make backroom deals and feel special and important. But the reality is they can never be part of that club. These, we always call them, these, on the DC, these Democrats and the deep state and all walk together. This is Washington, DC club that all works together. And their whole goal in life, their entire point is to rule over you. It's all about power, morning, noon, night. Monday through Sunday, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is always for power. It's about taking your tax dollars away from you, about taking the people that produce, and then growing this government is bigger and bigger and bigger so they can make things right? And make things just, and make things equitable. See, for them, this is about social justice. And this is about equity. And this is about DEI. And all those lies that this is really about is so that they can justify taking away your rights and your freedoms to rule over you. And they didn't think that Trump could ever come back. And now that he has come back, because they're all Marxists, meaning that they look at equity as a lens, so they look at the end results, and then they do anything they have to do. They see that they are right and that they are just, then it doesn't matter what other crimes they commit. Because as long as the ends justify the means, then they are morally right. And if you don't agree with them, well, then you must be a racist, or you must be a bigot or a homophobe or a transphobe. There must be something wrong with you. You just must not be educated enough, and you must not be smart enough. How dare you vote for Donald Trump? How dare you vote for your country? How dare you vote for your own best interests? That's not how fake news told you to vote. I mean, the Democrats called him a Nazi, and they called him a fascist. So are you a Nazi? Are you a fascist? You see how those woke word games play. But it didn't work. He won all 7 swing states because you saw through it. He won the popular vote because you saw through their lies. When there was a time when the mainstream media, they had so much influence that people were scared to death of them. There was a time when they could just end any politician's life they want. So these politicians were absolutely terrified of CNN or MSNBC or New York Times running a hit piece, because that could be the end of their career. But as Donald Trump, as many others are starting to show now, that is no longer the case. They can no longer run these hit pieces all they want and get away with everything they've ever done in the past. Just like with this Iran and Donald Trump blowing up the Iran nuclear program. As we started out the segment with, how this worked. So the deep state, they released a document to the fake news that was top secret and classified. And hopefully someone goes to prison for that, as I think Donald Trump has a pretty good idea of who it is. We're going to cover this for a second. So it goes over to fake news CNN. CNN gets this document, but just like the deep state who leaked it to them, who knew exactly what they were doing, lied about what was in this document on their sources saying experts. And they do all their favorite lies, right? They do the tell you the parts they want you to know, but then they ignore the parts they don't want you to know. So you will come to a conclusion that they want you to come to. And people like CNN have gotten so good at this lying game that they then try to cover their butts just in case it comes back and bites them in the butt like it is right now. Well, the next lie that they try to push is, well, we said this was a plenary report. And so therefore, because we said more information could come out in the future, they think that that's their lawyer talk for covering them for lying to you, the American voters. But they covered up much more than that. And Donald Trump is absolutely calling them out, and rightfully should, on this. As Donald Trump wrote, the Democrats are the ones leaking the information on the perfect flight to the nuclear strikes in Iran. They should be prosecuted. And Caroline Levitt was also calling for that today. And I suspect if Donald Trump doesn't say something like that, unless he has something in his back pocket, we'll see if they start to grow some guts and actually start throwing some Democrats in prison. whoever leaked this document, they knew they weren't supposed to. And they knew this was classified. And they knew that this document was going to make Donald Trump look bad. And then that's why fake news lied about what was in this document, is they tried to say the nuclear plants, that there wasn't really any damage to them, or that all the nuclear material was taken out, and that they would be back in months. When the very own same document said that this is a preliminary report and we don't know where it is, that this is going to take weeks to resolve. Of course, they left all that part out. And then what happens? CNN runs with it, New York Times runs with it. So these are, journalists, and then they go and they run all the same circle, right? It goes to the Democrats, it goes back down to the deep state, and then they all run the same hoaxes, not realizing that they can't get away with this anymore. And this journalist should have been fired, but they weren't, as CNN backs the activist pretending to be a journalist. And CNN posts this: "We stand 100% behind Natasha Bertrands." And Natasha, to help remind you who she is, she's the same one that ran the Hunter Biden laptop scam with the 51 intelligence agencies signing that document that said that all had the earmarks of Russia disinformation. Okay, this is the same deep state to the same reporter. They know exactly what they're doing. CNN knows exactly what they're doing. They all hate Donald Trump together. And now Donald Trump, he is going through and he is threatening to sue them. Let's see if I can find the right one here. So this is slide 8. Let me get over to this next slide real quick. Oh yeah, on this slide here, is that's not the right slide, is it? One more slide. Okay, there we go. Now I got the right slide up. And this one says here, so President Trump now threatened to sue New York Times, CNN for their misleading report based on the illegal intelligence agent from Iran. Trump's lawyers is telling CNN told in this case New York Times the letter that you must retract and apologize or be sued. New York Times refused to retract the article that they know is a lie. This is the same thing that 60 Minutes is going through right now when they tried to lie for Kamala Harris to affect the campaign to try to help her get elected. And it's all the same old tricks. It's just in a different game. Is they're saying, this is edited for time. Right? It's to try to lie to you to say, well, we have 40 minutes and the interview went on for an hour. So we're just reducing so we can fit it in the 40-minute segment. And most people, if that's all you knew, you think, well, okay. I mean, that's kind of weird, but all right. But it was much, much worse than that. They were asking her questions, re-recording them, and then they were taking different answers and putting it with different questions. And it's partly ironic because we only know because they put out a trailer with the answers and the questions, and it was Maze on X that caught this, and so good for him. I hope they continue to screw around, and I hope they continue to find out. As on this next step, we're going to go through, so we have Brian Stelter, and he's trying to cover the Mr. Potato Head for fake news. So watch how they talk to each other, these liberal elites, as they try to look themselves as their independent journalists. Try not to laugh in the way that Brian Stelter talks.
Just note that Hegseth's attacks are false. CNN has reported that this was a preliminary assessment. Why is he now trying to say otherwise?
The administration is picking.
Right, so there they go. So that they knew they were lying, but this is the hoax they're trying to cover. Well, we said it was preliminary. Right, we didn't say this was a final document. So that's them trying to cover their butts. They knew they were lying. And then they didn't give the whole document as we covered. And so now Brian Stelter is going to go and he's going to do what these little elites always do every time they're busted, is they go and they try to pretend that they're victims.
Picking a fight with the press and casting legitimate journalism as unpatriotic.
He called himself a journalist. Oh, I can't with these people. I just can't.
Right now, the Trump administration is not actually challenging the facts of what CNN reported. Instead, it's objecting to the existence of reporting.
Yes, they are. They're blatantly lying again. Yes, they are, because they had the document they shouldn't have had, and they should have never ran with it because it was classified. I mean, the Biden administration tried to throw Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life for having classified documents in his house that he was allowed to have as the president. So what happens to CNN when they have, not only do they have documents, but these are classified, meaning that you can't see them unless you have certain classifications. And then CNN, they go and they reveal this to the entire American public. What should their consequence be? These independent journalists.
The Trump administration just wants everyone to repeat Trump's words instead of following up, instead of asking questions.
You will never be able to hate these people enough. It's just not possible. They really are the worst of the worst. They've convinced themselves because of Marxism that they are right and they are just. And anything they do, as long as they come to the right conclusion, anything they do on the way to there, if they lie to you, if they cheat you, right, if they tell blatant, obvious lies, if they withhold the truth, then that is all justified because the ends justify the means. That's the way that these Democratic elitists think. But I say enough is enough. And with that, we're out of time. The rest of these stories you have to go back in the stack. We'll be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the CASHLOREN Show. Well, independent thinkers, we have reached the top of another hour. If you have enjoyed this content and haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the follow button, turn on notifications so you don't miss a moment. We will be live Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern every single weekday, followed by an after show exclusively over on Locals. But first, I'd like to thank our patriotic producer, Brooke, for all the help that she does to make this show possible. Also, if you would like to support the show, speaking of Locals, we'll be hosting an after show after this show airs, and you can gain additional perks for supporting the show, such as exclusive content, follow, and access to the after show and your name at the end of videos, just like these fine young independent thinkers who have supported the show as well. So thank each and every one of you. And make sure you head over to Locals. We'll be live here to talk here in a few more minutes. This is the CASHLOREN Show, and God bless the USA.